All right, welcome to Regulatory Week, our last week of the Crop Hour webinar series. Thank you to everybody who's joined us so far during the season and who's with us here for our last full week of sessions. My name is Amanda Bachmann. I'm the Pesticide Education and Urban Entomology Field Specialist for SDSU Extension. I'm based out of the Pierre Regional Center, and I will be your host this week. Today we'll be talking a lot with Department of Ag about some of the regulatory updates and then also the container recycling and unusable pesticide program. Tomorrow we will be talking with Dr. Ali Nafchi about some sprayer calibration with Precision Ag. Thursday will be a speaker from Colorado, Brian Kuntz, who will be talking about some industrial hemp issues. And then on Friday, we will have our private applicator training. So just for those of you who might be joining us to practice Zoom before the PAT, welcome. And we hope that you enjoy the content today and throughout the rest of the week. But I'm going to kick it off by introducing our first two speakers. Katie Nold and Valerie Mitchell are both pesticide program specialists with the South Dakota Department of Ag. They're based here in Pierre, and I usually see them when we're out on the road together or doing meetings from the Pierre Regional Center, but this year we've seen each other a lot through computer screens. So Katie, Valerie, it's very nice to see you again, and I'm glad that you are able to join us this morning and share the latest regulatory updates with our Crop Hour audience. So I will stop talking and turn it over to Katie, who's going to give us some dicamba and paraquat updates first, and then Valerie is going to take over and go through the rest of the regulatory updates. So thank you so much. Go ahead and share your screen and kick it off whenever you're ready.
All right, can you guys hear me? Sounds good. So we're just going to go over a few updates. As Amanda said, my name is Katie. So for paraquat, it will not be on your applicator card, but you will still need training every 3 years. You will need that training if you apply, purchase, or handle paraquat. And you must be able to provide proof that you went to that training, and you can do all of that online. Dicamba, it will not be tracked by us, but it will be on, and it won't be on your applicator card. Dicamba training is still required annually, and all ag use dicamba products are restricted use pesticide, and the end date for spraying dicamba is June 30th. Anyone who is purchasing or applying any of the 3 specific dicamba products, you must be a certified and licensed applicator, and you must go through the 2021 dicamba training. There's 3 options that are available for you. And if you just Google any of those, you should be able to find those trainings. EPA approved 2 new over-the-top dicamba products, the XtendiMax with Vapor Grip technology and the Ingenia, and they also extended the registration for an additional over-the-top dicamba product. Those registrations will expire in 2025. To manage offsite movement of dicamba, they require a pH buffering agent to be tank mixed. They require a downwind buffer of 240 feet and 310 feet in areas where listed species are located. And they are prohibiting over-the-top dicamba application of dicamba on soybeans after June 30th. They also simplified the label and use directions. And just as a reminder, the records are to be completed at the end of each day. This is a South Dakota law. And also keep your records for 3 years. Just a little bit of drift information. If there is an incident, it is our role to enforce the label and determine if the application was made in accordance with our state laws and rules. We investigate incidents that are reported within 30 days of the date that the damages occur, and at least 75% of the crop must be standing. We have discretion after 30 days of noticing damage. So once a report is sent to us, then we will assign an ag inspector to it. We will identify the landowners and the landowners of all adjacent properties of the incident reported. We consider many things when an incident is reported. Was everyone licenses? Were the licensed? Were the labels followed? Were the time frames acceptable? And so on. If an inspector does come out, they may have observed damage area. They may sometimes take samples, take photos. You will be notified there might be no action taken, and there might be some enforcement actions taken depending on what the incident is. And here's just kind of a grouping of our 2020 exposure totals. You can see most of our exposure cases were insecticides. And then I'm sure you guys have heard of it before, but we'll kind of go over Field Watch a little bit. This is going to help with any of those drift incidents. It's a platform where you can talk to specialty crop producers or beekeepers as an applicator. It's completely free and voluntary, so if you want to sign up for it, you sure can. This is just kind of what the website looks like, and then for you, you would click on Applicators over there and get yourself signed up. Once you sign up, you can have notifications for whatever area you specify. So you can either have notifications on the whole state, depending on if you want specialty crop sites in the whole state or just in a select county, or you can draw your own region. These states across the US use Field Watch and Drift Watch. And then why we have over 1,000 applicators, around 600 or 700 producers, and then 289 fields and a lot of beehives. So it is a great tool for you guys to use as applicators. And then, as I said before, a new email will be sent to you if a specialty crop site was approved in that area you specify. And some beekeepers have the ability to mark their hives as private. So as a registered applicator, you will be able to see those ones. And you can also use the app. So if you just want to pull it up on your phone whenever you're out in the field, you can do it that way. That is all I have for today, and here's our contact information. I will pass the baton off to Valerie.
Valerie, you're muted, but I can see your slides.
All right. Now you can hear me, hopefully, yeah. So, yes, and I'll just take a few minutes to go through some of the updates that happened to pesticide rules and regulations, which I know we have more than just pesticide applicators probably listening, and there's a few updates that are beyond the pesticide program, but you know, of course, my emphasis as the applicator specialist will be on pesticide applications and rules and regulations. So just always like to start out with a reminder that when we're talking about pesticides, we're talking about a number of different products, whether it's a herbicide to control weeds or an insecticide to control insects. And so that pesticide term is an umbrella term. So just a brief note of what is new and what is not new. What is not new is that our pesticide regulations are based on, of course, the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act, FIFRA, as you'll hear it be talked about. And that is administered, of course, by the Environmental Protection Agency. That does cover, regulate the distribution, sale, and use of pesticide products. And FIFRA also covers regulations for applicators becoming certified and licensed to apply, whether it's private applicators or commercial applicators. It does establish record-keeping requirements and worker protection standards as well for people who are working with pesticide products in or around. And I'm just going to go through these here very briefly because, again, I know that we're probably not all necessarily applicators on this call, but on this webinar, but there are two different classifications of pesticides, general and restricted use. And of course, as Katie mentioned, the dicamba ag products are in South Dakota a restricted use pesticide. So you do have to have a commercial applicator license or a private applicator license in order to purchase them and to legally apply them. So again, the Environmental Protection Agency is who sets the minimum standards at the federal level. And then the South Dakota Department of Ag is who, enforces the federal standards plus any additional state standards above that. And as Katie also mentioned, in South Dakota, at the federal level, records are required to be kept for 2 years. In South Dakota, we have an additional above and beyond that requirement. And so commercial applicators and now also private applicators need to keep their records for 3 years. And they just need to be, you don't have to send them in, they just need to be available if there is an inspection or an investigation. And people will provide their credentials and show and usually call ahead if they need to do an inspection or investigation. So, and then of course, worker protection standards. Most of the people that handle pesticides in South Dakota already have an applicator license, but if someone does not, then they need to be trained annually for safe handling and use of pesticides. So keep that in mind. And that is an annual training now that is required. As I mentioned, though, just as a note, everyone in South Dakota that is making a pesticide application in either a private or a commercial applicator scenario, for private applicators, if you're applying to ag land that produces more than $1,000 worth of ag product, then you're required legally to have a private applicator license. And then if you're going to be hiring out and receiving compensation or applying other people's property, then you have to have a commercial applicator license. So we do not in South Dakota have any provisions for people making applications without having an applicator license. There's no supervised applications in South Dakota, as there are in some other states do allow that. So this is the changes at the federal level that kind of prompted some changes we made in last year during session. And just briefly, it established, the Environmental Protection Agency established a couple more certification categories that are fairly more intense, I guess, categories. Aerial category, of course, fumigation category, and then a soil and non-soil fumigation categories. So these are categories that just have a little bit, like I said, a little more intense application process. And so we will be adding those categories in to our South Dakota categories. We already have the aerial category that was added in 2019. And then we'll be adding in a basically just a fumigation category. And that will be for anyone that's making fumigation applications, whether it's prairie dog control, doing a fumigation, or doing grain bin fumigation, or structural fumigation, whether they're private or commercial applicators. This will be a category that they will need to have on their license. So the other thing that's been a long time coming is requirement, or well, photo IDs. That's been a long time coming. We've been doing that for quite a number of years in anticipation of that. And then minimum age was the other one that was a long time coming, and that's finally went into effect. And we did actually add that into state law here to meet the federal requirements. For exams, they have to all be proctored now. So we used to have where we had take-home exams for private applicators, but those will all need to be proctored now at an extension office or a testing location. So that's kind of where our changes to South Dakota law was based on these updates at the federal level. So just to briefly cover the updates that took place in session 2020 session, House Bill 1028, Senate Bill 22, and Senate Bill 24. So these are what we introduced in order to meet federal minimum standards, and also to tweak some of the laws to make them a little bit clearer. So again, we knew this one was coming, that you would have to be 18 years of age in order to have a commercial or a private applicator license. So we do have some people that are testing, and if they're not 18, we aren't able to issue their license until they do turn 18. So then there were some updates made to the pesticide investigation and inspection rules, again, just to make things a little bit clearer for people, make it a little bit easier, more realistic, I guess. So now you have 30 days after the date the damage was observed or that the incident occurred. So it's a little bit clearer as far as when you have to report an incident, if you do want to report it to the Department of Ag. And if you do that, that does put into motion, the investigation process from there. So that form is on our website as well. South Dakota Department of Ag, sdda.sd.gov. Just a note, we did change the fees. They haven't been changed since I've been involved in all of this many, many years ago. So it's always been $25, but that's been changed to $35. And then fee exempt licenses went away. And that is because now an applicator can only have one applicator license, whether it's a private applicator license or a commercial. So everyone has one license. As I mentioned, we're going to include a fumigation category. And again, just because they're a little bit more dangerous, a little more intense applications. So we need some, EPA has decided we, need some special training for that. And that is true, because that's where a lot of potential problems come from, is fumigations and whatnot. So it's good to have some extra training with that. And our dealer fees also changed from 50 to 75. And though now we never used to be able to transfer a dealer license if a person in the same company took over it, but we can now, if someone leaves the company and they're the ones that held the dealer license, we can transfer it to another person within the company, as long as they're certified in the category G general category. But if a company changes names or changes a location, then we issue a new dealer license, because what these dealer licenses do is it tracks the movement of a restricted use pesticide, and that's strictly restricted use pesticides that you would need a dealer license for. But it tracks the movement into the state of South Dakota through the different locations until it's either applied or leaves the state. So that's any locations that is distributing a restricted use pesticide must have a pesticide dealer license. And again, this is just a law that went into effect saying that you can only have one applicator license. So if you have a private applicator license and a commercial, that private certification is going to show up on your commercial license. And what that does is, for private certification, it allows you to apply pretty much any type of pesticide on your own land or leased land. And there's no categories, but it will show up on your commercial license that does have commercial categories. And those are categories that you are legally able then to hire out and make applications for. So, you know, whatever categories you have, then commercial categories, those are the ones that you can legally make commercial applications with. The other regulation that went into effect in December is that we eliminated the aerial applicator form. So the rules that we had in place, or regulations, and that the South Dakota Department of Transportation had in place have gone away. So you don't have to fill in that aerial applicator form if you're an aerial applicator anymore. Of course, you still do have to register your aircraft with the South Dakota Department of Transportation if you're going to be flying in South Dakota. And you do have to attend a PASS program every 2 years, and aerial applicators will know what that's about. And then applicator records, we did have a change in that now both commercial and private applicators need to record their records, their applications, by the end of the day. Private applicators used to have 14 days, and now it's been changed in South Dakota that just like commercial applicators, it needs to be recorded by the end of the day. And private applicators used to only need to keep their records 2 years, but now they, like commercial applicators, need to keep their applicator records for 3 years on file. So that's kind of summing up here what we've been working on as far as the new certification and training plan for pesticide applicators. Again, starting back in 2017, and we've been working on getting our state regulations and rules updated to meet those new federal standards. And then the other thing that we're working on is by April 20th, we will be merging, the South Dakota Department of Ag will merge with the South Dakota Department of Environmental and Natural Resources. And so as of April 20th, we will all be the South Dakota Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources. And so you'll see probably some rebranding and all of that as that comes about. I was going to just mention here in this year's session, we did have, this is outside of pesticide regulations, so I won't be able to answer any questions on this, but we have hemp regulations that were discussed during the 2021 session. And some of those regulations will go into effect July 1st, 2021. And then the other one that I wanted to mention is that there was a regulation or bill introduced that would require commercial applicators to hold liability, to prove out that they have liability insurance. A lot of the states around us have that requirement, but this has been tabled here in South Dakota, so nothing to report on that at this time. So there's my contact information. If you need to get hold of us, Katie or I, the 773-4432 number, still a good number to contact us at. And again, some of this will be changing, but these are our contact informations for now.
All right, thank you, Valerie and Katie. If folks have questions, feel free to type those into the Q&A box. We'll leave Valerie's contact information up here for a second before I share the CEU credit, but I did want to clarify that for those folks joining us that are hoping to get their private applicator certification, that meeting is the one on Friday, March 26th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. So that's going to be a full 3 hours on Zoom. Have your snacks ready, have your beverages, get prepared. It's going to be a little bit long. And thank you to those. So when you registered for that, you did get links for this entire week. So today's session does not count for private applicator credit, but we're very happy you joined us, and we're hoping that you're figuring out, sort of the Zoom technology. Maybe if this is the first time you've hopped on a Zoom webinar, kind of figuring out your settings and everything. But don't worry, today is not the private applicator training. That is again on March 26th, starting same time, 10 a.m., and we'll go until 1 p.m. And I see we've got a question about photo ID for the Friday meeting. We're not going to go into that during this one, since this is not the private applicator training. There will be an affirmation form at the end of the PAT on Friday. So if you do have questions about the PAT, feel free to email me about those. I am going to put up the continuing education units here for a second, so those folks that are CCAs can go ahead and get those. And our next presenter is Spike King. He is also with the South Dakota Department of Ag, and he heads up the container recycling and unusable pesticide collection program. And he's joining us down here from the Pierre Regional Center, because apparently we've got better internet than the bait station. So thank you, Spike, for being willing to come down and hop online with us. If you want to go ahead and share your screen, you can get started whenever you're ready.
Okay, we'll get going here. Okay, can everybody hear me all right? Okay, like Amanda said, my name is Spike King. Excuse me. I manage the pesticide, container recycling and waste pesticide programs. Two separate programs, but yet the way things work out, it works good for us the way we manage it. First, I'm going to discuss how the program works. It's run by the Department of Ag. Funding comes from a portion of your pesticide registration fees. So any pesticide that's registered in the state, they pay a fee to have it registered. That's where our funding comes from. We have 2 full-time employees, myself and another. Plus, we usually have at least 1 part-time seasonal help. In the last couple of years, we've had 2. The program responsibilities are to collect and recycle pesticide containers and the collection and proper disposal of waste pesticides. As far as the container recycling, we'll discuss that first. We take all size plastic and pesticide containers. 55-gallon and smaller containers are acceptable under the ACRC program, which is the Agriculture Container Recycling Council. It is a industry-funded, not-for-profit group that works to ensure the safe recycling of ag containers. We actually work as a subcontractor under the ACRC, and their contractor for the Midwest region is Rural Recycling and Grinding. We also do take 5-gallon to 55-gallon steel pesticide containers. Totes and IBCs, shuttles, whatever name you want to call them. These are not covered under the ACRC, but we do recycle those as well. Excuse me. We have 2 permanent collection sites. One is the bait station that Amanda mentioned. That's our Department of Ag site here in Pierre. And then we also work with Missouri Valley Recycling out of Vermilion, but they only take 5-gallon and smaller containers. They just aren't set up for the shuttles or the drums. And but either one, whether you're bringing them to Pierre or to Vermilion, you need to call ahead, because Vermilion, they have to have things set up for you to bring them in. And for us here in Pierre, we aren't always available on site. So you need to call ahead. Just a little history of the project. The project started in 1992, and they had 2 sites and collected about 3,000 containers. And the statewide collections began in 93. There were 14 sites. The first 3 or 4 years, they actually had the ACRC regional people at the time were Tri-Rinse. They actually came and collected and ground those containers on site. And from 93 to 2008, we went from 14 sites to 31 collection sites, and from around 38,000 to about 98,000 containers. From 98 to 2008, some of you may remember this, but we ran around with a 20-foot van trailer behind a pickup, and that's how we collected the containers. And then they had to be taken to either Pierre or Vermilion for grinding. In 2009, we purchased a semi and a portable grinder. We actually purchased it from Tri-Rinse, the company that was originally here doing our work. From 2009 to 2012, we averaged around 168,000 containers annually. And from 2012 to our present day, we're averaging about 15,000. But we currently do 37 full or half-day sites between the 15th of July and the 15th of September. And we usually are on site 3 to 6 hours. And we'll do, a lot of times we'll do 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, or if it's a bigger site where we know we're going to have more people, we'll be there for around 6 hours. And that also leaves us time to stop at some other places that aren't on the schedule to pick things up. We do approximately 45 other companies that we stop at and pick up containers, or producers. Some of the bigger farm producers also have a stop through. Since the start of the recycling program, we have collected about 3,250,000 containers. One thing to remember, if you are recycling containers, that all containers must be triple or pressure rinse. And that's shuttles, doesn't matter what it is, they need to be triple or pressure rinsed. And we recommend that you rinse them at the time of use. We've had a lot of people call us looking to get rid of rinse water, and an issue we'll talk about in a few minutes with the waste program. But if you're not going to rinse them at time of use, you need to segregate your rinse water so you don't end up with something that you just cannot get rid of. Another thing to remember when you're bringing in containers, that lids and the paper labels need to be removed. And single layer label can be left on or stay. Here's kind of an idea of how that looks. I know we've had people bring in jugs that were, all the labels were gone, and then say they spent hours trying to remove them, and it's not necessary. As long as the jug's like this with that paper label, or sometimes it's more of a film label on it, that's fine. Those can stay. As far as totes and shuttles, we do about 1,000 a year. These are more the old style here. We see some of those yet, but we're seeing fewer and fewer. With those, we almost ask that you don't cut them up yourselves. Just rinse them, get them cleaned out and ready for us. Because in order to get them ready for them to be ground by the company that we're moving them to, all the metal and stuff has to be taken out of them. And a lot of times when people are cutting them up, they just don't. They miss it and don't see it. But mostly now we're starting to see, this is a shot of our site, kind of shows you how this has been quite a few years ago. But how many shuttles we get around there that we need to cut up and dispose of. This is what we're starting to see more of now. And you can see the bottom of this tank was not cleaned out, but this is just kind of a brief description of how we like to see these plastic totes or IBC bladders cut up. The first thing you have to do is cut the bung out or the valve. And we usually do that even before we rinse them, because you just, without removing that or cutting a hole in the corner or something, you can't get them as clean. We usually then pull the top off so we can put it over our pit and rinse it out. And then we cut down the sides like so. And then you fold the two sides in, and then the ends fold it up, and then we stuff them in a steel cage or another bladder or something, and get them ready for disposal. This is just a chart showing the pesticide container trends over the since 2000. As you can see, the last number of years have been really good. We've recycled a lot of containers. Oh, why is it not moving? For some reason, it don't want to advance a slide. Ah, there we go. Okay, here we go. Now, what happens to the plastic? All the granulated plastic, or we do also have vermilion, a lot of times bales theirs. We sell to the ACRC regional person, rural recycling and grinding. We receive 25 cents a pound for the grind and 15 cents for the baled. Drums, we do not cut up anymore. We can load a semi van full of them. We'll try to keep them a year. It takes about 700 to load a van. We usually load out at least one a year. We don't cut them up and grind. They're just too labor intensive with the equipment we got. So we just load them on a van and ship them that way. Most of the plastic that we do recycle is marketed to recycling companies that meet the ACRC standards. And then the shuttles, we actually have to pay for disposal. As like I said before, we don't have a ACRC program for them. Just a few of the things that are made out of the recycled plastic. The last few years, we've shipped a large number of ours to a drain tile company and through the ACRC program. Now, this is a picture of our waste disposal, our site in Pierre. The yellow totes you see there are not full of, well, they are full of old chemical, but we use them as basically a containment inside our facility. But as you can see, we've got shuttles full of product, drums full of product, 2.5 gallon jugs. A lot of your the yellow shuttles that you see there are actually full of some of the metal containers that you have that are older and rusty, or glass containers. So if they were to break, they're contained inside that. As with the recycling program, we've been, it's been running since 93. And from 93 to 05, they had 4 to 7 day collections per year. And they were normally done in conjunction with city's household hazardous waste program. And we paid all the expenses for setup, all that. And we weren't really getting our bang for our buck with what we were able to dispose. So now we do pick up some waste during our recycling runs, but we try to limit that simply because we're on the road all week and we don't want to carry that around with us. But anyway, now we actually collect from the farm or the facility, and occasionally from some homeowners as well. We still do 3 to 5 household hazardous waste disposals. This last year, we didn't do any with the COVID-19 issues. Nobody was willing to have them. Right now, we work, the contractor we work with is Veolia Environmental, and we had used them in the past, and then we got into a cooperative agreement with the state of Minnesota, and that's who Veolia Environmental uses. So we are able to do it under their pricing, which is better than what we were able to get in the past. From 93 to 07, we averaged about 32,000 pounds of waste a year. And the total in that time was about 484,000 pounds. And from 2014 to present, we've averaged about 136,000 pounds. And the total of waste that we've shipped is 1,690,000 pounds roughly. And one reason that we've seen the larger amount, I'm going to get into that in just a second here, of waste over the last, since 2014. And part of that is the container rules that were put into effect in 2012. But anyway, just to kind of explain what we do take, we take anything that the label use was canceled. Some of the things you'll see here, DDT and toxaphene, there's others that are products you may have, actually seen in the last number of years, but anything where the label's been canceled. The other is product which is no longer usable. A couple examples are dry products that have caked, or liquids that have settled out or can't be remixed. Also, any product that the label is missing, it's unidentified, so proper use is impossible. The only thing that we do charge for is rinse water, and all we charge is our cost for disposal. And the only reason we do that is we've been contacted by people who have thousands of gallons of rinse water, and that goes back to that rinse that I said before. Rinse when you're using the product, when you're spraying it, so you don't run into these issues where you have 3,000 or 4,000 gallons of rinse water. It just, our cost is too high to pay for that disposal. Here's just a chart showing, how you can see how it spiked since 2012. What's changed? This goes back to what I was speaking of with the new container rules. Your totes, shuttles, whatever you want to call them, have had to meet new standards. And where if the seals were broken, or if you were going to recertify them, retest them, so they were met requirements, they had to be rinsed out, and they looked to dispose of that rinse water. And in the meantime, also 1,000 thousands of totes have become unusable. Like I said, old totes were being stored is another issue we ran into, that were now absolutely obsolete, and they just had to find a way to get rid of them. And a lot of them we were actually taking had old chemical in them that they couldn't rinse because they couldn't use the rinse water. So we've actually had to absorb that. But as long as it was a not rinse water, we were able to take it and dispose of it. Another thing we've run into is companies are purchasing established businesses, and they find that there's product there that is obsolete or just not usable, or they don't know what it is. And we've had to bring those in, and a lot of them we've rinsed out. And so we've actually started to where we've generate nearly 3,000 pounds or more of rinse water, or 30,000 pounds of rinse water or more a year. So, and I don't know, another thing we're starting to see that has affected us is many of these, the new totes are IBCs, the cage tanks are one-time use and non-refillable, and nobody wants to take them back. So we're ending up having to dispose of them as well. And as far as the rinse water, the reason we charge, as I explained before, is cost. What we've been doing the last few years, if we can make it work, is we bring it in and we ship it by tanker load. There's a company that works with Veolia that will come in, and they will have basically a big vacuum tank, and they vacuum the shuttles out or tanks out, whatever we have. And we can pay $4.50 for that per gallon for a tanker load price, where if we have to ship it in totes, we pay $6.50 a gallon to get rid of it. So it's quite a cost saving for us if we can do that. But like I say, either way, it's very expensive. And like I said before, we've been contacted by companies that have had between 2,000 and 5,000 gallons. The concern I have with not taking it is, where did it go? Where will it go? Is it legal to apply it? If you haven't segregated that, as I mentioned before, I don't know that there's really a legal way to apply it. And so it's one of those things that you really need to consider when you're cleaning out tanks, jugs, whatever, is what you do with your rinse water. Just to kind of go over things, the new container rules have really caused an increase in the amount of waste and in the amount of totes or shuttles that we've taken. It's been a big drag on time and resources, and it's really increased the number of shuttles we've taken, and it's been a big drag on our fund balances as well. But other than that, I mean, the number of containers that, as far as the 2.5s, the barrels, drums, those we've really seen no decline, and we seem to be picking up new customers every year. I guess with that, here's my contact information. If anybody has questions or needs us to stop and pick something up, give us a call or send me an email.
Awesome. Thank you, Spike. I'll leave your contact information up here for a second before I post the QR code for the CCAs. If anybody has any questions, feel free to type those into the Q&A. And then I believe we've got one more poll for this one. So I'll throw up the QR code and Matt will throw up the poll here. So again, if you are a certified crop advisor, This QR code is for you to get your CEUs for this last segment. And then after we are finished with sort of our regular part of this webinar, you are welcome to stick around. We have sort of an informal discussion afterwards. So if you have other questions for our speakers, you can stick around. We'll sort of make everybody a panelist so that you can unmute and visit. But otherwise, the rest of our crop hour week, again, tomorrow we'll be talking about some precision ag sprayer calibration. Thursday, we'll be talking about industrial hemp. And then Friday, if you are a private applicator, Friday is the private applicator recertification class. And again, the webinar on Friday is going to be that full 3 hours for the private applicator recertification. Wednesday and Thursday are just like this, 1 hour, but Friday we've got you for 3 if you're in it for the private applicator training credit. So, and any of my other SDSU panelists, if I'm missing anything, feel free to chime in, but I think we have sort of all of our regular business covered. And again, in the chat, if you want to request any printed copies of our SDSU Extension publications, they're sort of generally all the ones related to agronomy and pesticides. You can fill out that question pro survey. And if you'd like to access any of the crop hour recordings, those are available on our SDSU Extension YouTube channel. And I've linked the playlist in the Zoom chat as well. And I want to thank Department of Ag again, Valerie, Spike, and Katie for joining us virtually live in person today. It was great to hear from all 3 of you and, you know, kind of hear what's been going on in Department of Ag. And Spike, I really appreciate your update about container recycling and the pesticide collection, because I know we get a lot of questions about it, and that's a great service that Department of Ag provides for the citizens of South Dakota. And also for those of you attending this week, we do send out a survey via email at the end of every week just to kind of collect some information and see how we can, you know, better update our programming to serve the needs of our clients. So keep an eye out in your inbox at the end of the week. You will get a survey link about the Crop Hour series. So with that, I am going to go ahead and stop share on the CCA QR code. So if you are a certified crop advisor looking for those continuing education units, make sure that you scan this code before I drop it off the screen. And I didn't see any questions, so thank you everybody for joining us for our last crop hour, regular crop hour of the season. Again, you're welcome to stick around and visit with our presenters. Otherwise, hopefully we'll see you again tomorrow morning talking about some sprayer calibration and precision ag topics.